Now let's move on to step 3. Once you have your segment of people figured out, now it's time to find out what your members will bond over. You are here in this side of the Venn diagram. You're trying to find the common bond that your segment of people all share. So community types can be broken down by what people tend to bond around, which makes them feel like they're a part of something greater than themselves. So remember when we talked about the elements of value? We want to tap into that life-changing part of it. We want to really establish a sense of affiliation and belonging. You want your specific group of people to feel like they are among their peers. So lucky for us, behavioral psychologists have figured out that there are 3 main areas that people tend to form bonds around, and that is common goals, common experiences, and common interest. We'll go over all the different types of communities that form around these commonalities. The first section is common goals. When all the members of your community share a common goal, it's a very powerful and uniting experience. So here are some community types that center around common goals. First is a community of action. These are communities where the goal is change. There's also communities of inquiry. This is where the common goal is education. People are sharing information and educating each other. The next type of community is a community of innovation. This is when the goal is creation. People are working together to create something new. There's also communities of purpose. These are communities where the goal is support. People are supporting each other. So we're gonna go through examples of online communities for all 4 of these community types. The first is a community of action. PETA is a wonderful example of a community where the goal is change. So PETA stands for People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. You have probably heard of them before because they are a very vocal community. You've probably seen their protests, seen news articles of their members doing questionable things. They love being in the news because their goal is to get people to stop what they see as abusing animals. You can see it right here on their website. Animals are not ours to eat, wear, experiment on, use for entertainment, or abuse in any other way. You can immediately see that this is a community of action where they're looking to change something about the world. Open Study is a wonderful example of a community of inquiry. So remember, with community of inquiry, the goal is education. So you can sign up for the Open Study community and choose a subject, and you can talk to other people who are also learning that subject. It's an online study group, and the goal is to share knowledge and learn about whatever it is you're interested in. In this page that I clicked on, it's specifically about writing. So it's just people gathering together who are passionate about writing and looking to educate each other on best practices. Now let's look at an example of a community of innovation where the goal is creation. These are open source communities like Arch Linux, where people are gathering together to create something using Linux. Then we have communities of purpose. Now the goal with communities of purpose is support. Review communities are perfect examples of a community of purpose because every time someone leaves a review, they are helping someone else make a purchase decision. They're helping someone else feel confident in what they're buying or renting, in this case with Airbnb. Amazon is another great example of a community of purpose. People are supporting each other by leaving detailed reviews. And believe it or not, a lot of people consider this a community. There might not be strong relationship building happening, but people are actively participating to help other people. So now let's talk about community types that center around common experiences. There's communities of circumstance. This is when all of your members share a situation, often a situation that is outside of their control. Communities of position are when people share a stage of life. So this would be your mommy bloggers, communities for teenagers. They share a certain stage in life. Last, we have a community of place, and this is where people share a geographical location. So remember whenever we were talking about offline examples of that relationship model with your friend in the bar, that's a community of place. You just happen to be at the same place at the same time. So let's look at some examples. Cancer care here is a example of a community of circumstance. People who have cancer, it's completely outside of their control, but they can feel very, very emotionally connected to someone else who's going through that same circumstance. Teen Inc. is an example of a community of position. Remember, this is all about sharing a stage of life. So Teen Inc. is for teenagers who are really interested in writing. They can take workshops, they can exchange ideas in forums. So it's a place for them to gather together, share their passions as they share this same stage in their life. Last, we have Next Door. It's a community of place. You can, whenever you sign up, it connects you to other people who have signed up that live in your neighborhood, down to your zip code. With communities of place, the smaller the place, the more bonded people tend to become because they know the same landmarks, they go to the same bars, they just have more in common. So it's easier to move people along that relationship model because they have more in common to start out in that acquaintance stage. So communities of place can be a very, very powerful way to position your community. Lastly, we have the community types that deal with common interest. And lucky for everyone, there's only one, and that is community of practice. This is when your members share a hobby, a profession, or a craft. Now, don't be fooled. It's hard to make this work because it needs to be specific and unique. There are communities all over the place that serve as a community of practice, but you have to work harder to make yours something special. Let's look at some popular examples of online communities that are a community of practice. The first is Lego. Lego has done a wonderful, wonderful job of tapping in to their community, and they do it through spaces like this. These are the message boards for Lego. They have people who are passionate about Bionicle. I don't really know what that is. They have people who want to talk about Lego castles. They have people who want to talk about building cities with Lego. So they can niche down to different avatars with their message boards. But it's all people who share a passion for a hobby, which is building with Lego. LawLink is another example of a community of practice. So this is obviously for lawyers, the attorney network. You can sign in and immediately collaborate with lawyers from all over the world because they all share a profession, making it a community of practice. Lastly, we have Hog from Harley-Davidson. This is a community of practice because they're sharing a hobby. They're in fact sharing a lifestyle. The Harley Owners Group is really, really good at connecting Harley owners from around the world in local rallies and rides, so they can always find people to meet up with to ride their motorcycles together. Now, it's important to know that your community can and most likely will be a hybrid of different community types. So let's look at an example of a hybrid community. This is the Austin chapter of the National Association of Professional Women. So their demographic is women, and they address several different types of community here. It's a community of interest because it's business professionals. It's a community of place because it's specific to Austin. And it's probably a community of inquiry as their members talk and share best practices. So you can make a hybrid, and in fact, I highly suggest it so that you can create a truly unique space for your members. To that note, a word of caution here. Don't try to create a community that already exists, because if your plan is to recreate a community that already exists and siphon off members of a different community, that's gonna be a hard battle. Instead, add more demographics to your specific group of people, or add community types and create a truly unique space. Your community doesn't have to include every single customer avatar you have. Be strategic with it. Address the right part of the customer value journey for your business and really think about which avatars your community will tap into.